La session de l'après-midi est plutôt une session applicative, comme vous avez vu. Donc c'est un plaisir d'accueillir Henri Calvera de Total, qui va nous donner une perspective utilisateur, en réalité utilisateur industriel. Donc à toi Henri, merci.
Thank you very much. If you don't mind, I will speak in English even if I have a strong. Thank you very much. Welcome back to this afternoon session. I will continue my talk in English even if my French accent is very high, but we have some folks who don't speak French, and I will try to do my best. Thank you for inviting me in this 40th edition of Aura. 20 years, twice a year, 20 years anniversary is a good success. Congratulations to all the committee. Now I will try to discuss with you this afternoon about a user perspective and what we can think about high performance computing in oil and gas, mainly in Total. My presentation will be in let's say 3 parts. The first, I will try to focus on how oil and gas HPC brings value to our industry. I will show you some example. I will show you the experience we gained all along this last decades. Then I will move to some comments about programming the new computers, about the hardware evolution, and how to address the programming development on these computers. And finally, I will also try to a short discussion to some what I call blue sky or sci-fi technology, which is new technology we are already using, but not using yet, but there are a lot of work and research work on this topic. Then I will try to discuss a little bit about that. Then let's start with this first slide, where I show how our environment is a challenging environment. Because if you look at the discovery, they are more rare, and it's more and more difficult, harder and harder difficult to find a new discovery, new big reservoir in our industry, and we have a big competition between international oil company, national oil company, and at increasing cost and decreasing return. Then we need always to reduce risk and cost, to open new frontier, exploring new zone, to find new reservoir, new trap, to improve the technology, how to get a better image, how to recover more oil from the reservoir, to increase our know-how and competencies, and also to integrate more advanced technologies in our workflow and in our industry. And among these, HPC is a major asset for delivering value to oil and gas. This is clearly the main tool, one of the key tools helping us in our business. Let's come back to, in one slide, what is exploration and exploration production. Everything starts with seismic data. We have, in this case, marine seismic data acquisition, which generates a huge amount of data. The size of the acquisition is roughly order of 1,000 square kilometers. The cost in order of $100 million. And we record hundreds terabytes of data. These data, we process them through an iterative process, and we try to get the best understanding of this data and to find from this data the best representation explaining this data, the best representation of the subsurface explaining this data. And it comes with this subsurface model representation, including which allows the geologist to find the trap, And then this, again, requires hundreds of petaflops. If you sum up all the computation needs and all the iteration is hundreds of petaflops for processing this in 3D. And once we have found a trap, we drill. If we find something interesting, we start to produce oil. But for this, it required a huge amount of investment. And we expect that we will get back a huge amount of equivalent oil barrels. Then this is all the process which is we run on a daily basis in our industry. And then we have to improve the process. For improving the process, we need more physics. More physics because we have to explain more difficult zone, more difficult event, and finding more accurate representation of the different subsurface, defining not only the shape but also the petrophysics parameters, the porosity for improving reservoir. For that, we need more complex algorithms and more integration of different technologies, including more complex workflow. And all of this, we need more HPC. Then if we do we look at some history, key date history, we can see that seismic depth imaging, and I'm talking only about seismic depth imaging now, is present for decades in our industry. And you can see that all along these years we have introduced more and more complex technology, starting from a 2D representation back to the 80s, then moving to 3D domain in the 90s, then in early 2000 being able to implement and to introduce more physics in our main operator we use for propagating wave, the wave equation operator, and now recently more physics and more accurate image, moving to the full waveform inversion, which is a kind of grail, holy grail for us, because it gives us the opportunity, the capability to find not only the structure of the subsurface, but only the parameters and the exact definition of the subsurface. And if you look at how the HPC evolution followed this, is clearly, you can see from the 90s to this day, nowadays, we have following all the evolution of the HPC, from Cray computer back to 80s, up to massively parallel, multi-petaflop massively parallel, recently in total more than 6 petaflop per machine. Then this is very correlation, you can understand how much our progress are correlated both to HPC and also to the technology we can develop because of the HPC. Then HPC is delivering value for oil and gas because it gives us the opportunity to reduce risk, being more precise, running faster and better, and optimize seismic depth imaging workflow, but also reduce cost. We can optimize acquisition design. We can save a lot of money by getting an optimized acquisition system. We can improve the production forecasting, improve the oil recovery. And again, we can open a new frontier, having a better appraisal for new exploration. So let's show some examples. First, run faster, run better. Here you have two examples of starting with exactly the same model. Same model, same data, but on left you have the reverse time migration process we have introduced roughly in 2008, running at 35 Hertz on our 2012 supercomputer. We run this in 30 days. The yellow circle shows some events, it's quite low frequency. On the right, you can see exactly the same model, same data, but running RTM at 50 Hertz. And because the code is running a finite difference, time explicit finite difference scheme, you very well know that frequency is clearly related to the mesh size and the discretization both in time and space. And we ran that in 2016 in 3 days. And you can see again in this red circle how much details we can find. And in this case, we are able to really see the reservoir, to delineate more reserves previously unseen or undevelopable. Another example is reducing risk. Being able to model full seismic acquisition, thanks to high-performance computing, is quite new, and we are able to really optimize the acquisition system design. On this example, on the left part, the bottom part, you can see an image with a red yellow circle, which shows a salt domain, and below salt we don't see anything. By computing synthetic data based on the model built by the geophysicists and geologists, we were able to model the acquisition, to reproduce the data, to reprocess it, and we start to see the event we want to see. Back to the field, we reshoot the acquisition, and we run again the process, and you can see that below salt the imaging is quite improved dramatically thanks to this new acquisition. And in fact, what we have done is we have performed a better illumination of complex geological structures, and this is why we have improved our imaging process. But not only that, thanks to the forward modeling, we were able to design exactly the acquisition we needed for that and save money, roughly $20 million in this case, which is quite good in this case. Another important example is also reducing risks. And a new technology which has been introduced recently, but not a new technology. Back to 80s, it was my PhD thesis. Full waveform inversion was, I studied in 1984. My PhD studies was exactly on this topic, but not at the same scale and not exactly with the same technology. Then what you can see here is a real improvement of the seismic velocity resolution. On the top, left and right top, you can see before full waveform inversion, a standard process. You can see some events, interesting events, what we call reflectivity, and velocity model in color below, very smooth. And here is a depth slice. You can see that you have details, but it's quite blurry. It's not very clear. After FWI, what you can see that we can start. We really can start to see details and exactly the petrophysical parameters, the velocity distribution within this model, and exactly knowing what is what. And on the right side, you can see also at the same depth slice how much we have improved the definition. And in fact, this helps us a lot to reduce hazard and poor pressure prognosis, and because we get a more reliable structure. Then full waveform inversion for seismic velocity provide us a fantastic tool to go beyond what we were able before in terms of imaging, and also it will provide us more information to get more information about the porosity system for reservoir optimization. Reservoir optimization also take advantage of the HPC. Here is a model. We are able now to run very large model, giga model. Then running giga model, we reduce the approximation. We perform less upscaling. We can use thinner grid. We have better forecast in production and more optimal development optimization. Here is you can see on red was the previous simulation on the coarser grid, and this simulation was overestimated the reserve even if it was overestimating the reserve, it was not a good point. Coarser model overestimate. By running at thinner scale, we were able to optimize and to get a better prediction and appraisal of this reservoir. You can see on the left side the difference between the two codes we are using in-house, Eclipse, the old generation, and Intersect, the new generation, and you can see that within the same simulation time, how much hour we need to perform the same simulation time in days. And this, again, is unfeasible without HPC and parallel computing. These are some examples, but what is next? We can see that in oil and gas, the needs for HPC are still growing. In seismic acquisition, we are on the order of magnitude. We are acquiring more data, more component, more complex data, dense data, 4D acquisition. In seismic depth imaging, we want to process more physics, more complex approximation, more iteration, having more interaction and interactive process, and more complex workflow. And you can see that the needs in terms of growth are from 1 to 3 order of magnitudes. And reservoir simulation also, we want to include more physics, bigger model, unstructured grid, multi-resolution, moving to uncertainty quantification, again, more interaction with the 4D data. And also introducing new technologies such as multi-scale modeling from pore scale to reservoir scale, having a better integration of all this technology, which will help us a lot in our process. But also, yes. Then these are the growth. Then what can we expect? We can expect that moving transition to exascale or pre-exascale will help us a lot in terms of moving from years or months for high complexity process to days to hours in low complexity. We'll be able to introduce some interactivity in a drilling, for example, to get some multi-roll time simulation and to optimize the operation and to again reduce risk. We expect and we think that by moving to this pre-exascale or exascale technology, if we can have access to it and use it correctly, we'll be able to integrate more physics, more complex workflow, introducing different assumptions on the field, moving to massive simulation, moving to history match or inverse problem even for reservoir simulation, again uncertainty quantities, and introducing new physics for oil recovery. Another things which is very important, and we see that since a few years, is the large amount of data we have to take into account, and more the unstructured data, and more data coming from many sources, and we have more and more to deal with this data, and data analytics, machine learning is an important topic in Total, where we try to take advantage of all this technology and all this information to improve the drilling, to improve the geological definition, to get a better knowledge, and it is really a revolution in our industry, because it's not only big data analytics, big data, machine learning, it's also how we can use this technology more integrated into our application, more integrated into our HPC system, and certainly this will become something more and more used in our industry for improving our process. Then, to conclude this part, we can see that constant progress for upstream demands to implement more accurate and faster algorithms and integrating more and more physics. Transition to exascale really open new possibilities to geoscientists, reducing risk, cost, and opening new frontiers. It's a bridge between physical scales, providing better precision, and it's a real tool we need to take advantage of. And a newcomer is artificial intelligence, which is a new technology, a revolution, which certainly will bring more value to oil and gas. However, from a user perspective, we are still facing many challenging questions. What programming model and tools we can use, hiding the complexity, the hardware complexity? How to adapt existing workflow, how this will impact our existing workflow in terms of, because our workflow are using complex process with different software, not only the code running on the high-performance computing or the target pre-exascale technology, but many different applications, including which are I/O intensive, CPU intensive, interaction, graphic technology. Then this will have an impact in our workflow. And again, also an interesting question: how we will integrate machine learning into workflow and application. Then hardware is evolving, is growing more complex. Yes, Jacques Dongara already shown similar slide this morning. It's very interesting. For now, what we have, the standard is on node we have CPU memory. On the CPU we have different kind of CPU, and we have the storage. But what we have seen recently is the introduction of more heterogeneous systems, CPU, GPU, memory, or memory and mini-core technology with different architecture coming. And not only that, we see more memory hierarchy, more storage hierarchy, on node or off node. And all this will complexify a lot the way we have to design and to adapt our codes. And what we see globally is a dramatic increase of compute number and core per compute node. The top 500 clearly show that machines are growing complex, more complex. Another interesting point is what we can see also, that accelerating many-core technology is dominating this top 500 machine. And we will certainly have no choice but to use a specialized computer for running our code on exascale or pre-exascale on exascale machine. And another interesting point is what envelope is becoming a key driver when we decide to build a new data center. So then, again, an example of how hardware are going more complex. Look at two different systems. Summit, 136 petaflop, 3,000, roughly 3,500 node, IBM plus NVIDIA GPU. Aurora from Argonne, roughly same computing power, but in roughly the same watt envelope, but 50,000 nodes. And another technology. In terms of user, the question is, if I have one application, what can I do? Do I move to scale in or do I move to scale out? How can I adapt my application? I can take advantage of the two different ways of thinking. And also, recently we have learned that Aurora is postponing this project to 2021, and they say that they will not use Nighthill anymore. So, okay, but is there some uncertainties in the roadmap? As a user, it's difficult to. We have invested a lot in this technology. We have purchased a kernel system, we have developed codes, and we have this kind of not very clear messages from national labs. This is interesting, I will say. Another point which is very, very also important is our applications are growing more complex. Indeed, systems are growing more complex. Application will become more complex. We have to use different CPU technology with a dramatic increase of parallelism, problem of data placement, what is an efficient way to place data and to improve data locality, how to optimize program and what programming strategy. We have more storage hierarchy, again, same problem, data movement, data locality, near, far storage to manage. Few thousand, up to 10,000 compute nodes, million of tasks, multiple architecture dimensions. So again, communication, synchronization, load balancing, data movement, placement, all the problems we already know, but they will be still there. Another fault tolerance, checkpointing, is also a very important point. Then what we need is appropriate software environments, compilers, library, runtime. We need the real glue between the scientist, who is not an HPC specialist, to the production system, and also we need appropriate tools hiding this complexity or from the hardware to the user. Because don't forget that the software life cycle is much longer than the life cycle of one computer. Some codes developed back to 90s, end of 90s, are still running on our HPC system in total. Then tool and programming. Tool exists. We have some tools. We have good tools for compute node level. We have OpenCL and CUDA for the one who likes to develop on low level. We have compiling directives like OpenACC, OpenMP, quite very interesting. At internode level, we have MPI, still MPI, and certainly always MPI, even if it evolves. We had some PGAS initiative like Core Fortran, UPC, even if they are standards, they were not adopted by community, and this is a pity because I can tell you that Core Fortran is a very nice way to think your application. But still, these tools don't provide the full vision of the complexity of the system. We don't know exactly how to manage the memory hierarchy and data locality. We don't have tools for describing millions of tasks, parallel tasks, and how to manage that, or how to be able to correctly program this, like efficient task parallel programming model. And we cannot do this work without a fully integrated team between scientists and HPC specialists. An example, with OpenACC, we try to take advantage of OpenACC for our development in seismic application, and we did the job. First step, we start by a naive implementation of the kernel, and roughly compared to the CPU code, we got a factor 2. Then we moved to a second OpenACC version by tuning loops, by doing some more job, and we doubled the performance. And we moved, and finally we worked hard with HPC team to finally get a quite very good optimization and speed up of this code. Step 2, we put back that into the application, and we have to adapt all our code in terms of data structure, host device communication, MPI communication between host to host, GPU to GPU, and load balance all these devices. And we roughly got a good, a very reasonable speed. So what we have learned that OpenACC is interesting, is a mature product we are using and we are porting our application, but we cannot, for now, preserve performance portability. We preserve across platform. We preserve portability, but the optimized code running on device is not very, very optimized on CPU. We have defined a full workflow, and again, as I said, we need a very good and strong collaboration between teams, the different teams, and sooner we start to integrate high-performance computing into our code, better it is. We cannot start developing new high-performance code without having in mind the programming model and the parallelism model we have to implement. Another very important thing, I think, a very important point which will be affected by Exascale is data center evolution. We know, as far as what I know or what I understand, is that this system will be more specialized. We see they are more heterogeneous, more specialized, and will address a limited number of applications. Then we have to develop more complex workflow, how to integrate this specialized technology into our workflow, because we generate more data, we will run faster. Then we have to, all the ecosystem around this must evolve very fast. We will have also the convergence of big data and using this big data through machine learning to improve the process, to improve the behavior of the different algorithms. And this high-performance data analytic will also will be an important parameter of data center evolution. And another one which start and we start to talk about in our company is cloud computing. What will be cloud computing? How much we will use cloud computing, and how will we use cloud computing? Will be it on premise? Will be it hybrid, public? And again, it will be very dependent of the workload of our application. Then we can say that our HPC data center will become more heterogeneous. We'll certainly get general purpose HPC, order of petaflop, where we can develop more standard application, and most of the application can take advantage of this technology. We'll need more specialized high-performance computing, in-house or outside. How? We need also how to manage the data storage, different layer, and more. Then again, this will have a strong impact on how we will develop our application. We will organize the software, the workflow. We need optimized tool. We need containerization containers. We need more things, new things coming. We have to take into account, to integrate for developing all the application. Now I move to the last part of my presentation, is my sci-fi or blue sky topic. Something I want to address, even maybe it's too early, maybe it's, but it's funny in any case. Exascale is an exciting challenge, and we know that it will become reality in a few years. How? We don't know. What will be the size of the machines, the power envelope, the technology? We have some ideas, but we don't know exactly. But it will come. And pre-Exascale machines, smaller machine, we will be able to use it because we are working in that direction. However, there is an important research in an enforcement in new class of hardware technology, and the two of them, even if they are not even if their family of applications are quite restricted today, are quite interesting. Among them is neural network processor. We have IBM, NVIDIA, Google working on this technology, providing low power processor, optimized processor for neural network. And we have quantum computers. And quantum computers, today we have D-Wave, we have IBM Q, and we know that it's a very advanced technology and preliminary work, but we know how they are using more for machine learning, some kind of machine learning, optimization, but can we do something else? Neural network. This technology is more and more integrated and efficient. We will use it. But also, what we forget time to time, and sometimes, that neural network in theory are universal function approximators. They are minimizing function. They are minimizing cost function. Then we can apply that to mathematical problems, and we could try to apply this technology to classical mathematical problems. We have already, when you look at some literature, there are already work trying to solve PDEs with neural network. There are plenty of examples. Very simple, but they are there. You have a very recent paper from Thomson, John Thomson from Google Brain, on how to accelerate fluid flow with neural network. And the idea behind that is to accelerate the sparse linear solver engine using neural network. And if we think further as a short-term application, if we think to the complexity of our system becoming bigger, can we take this kind of technology we could use to accelerate some of codes and bringing some more, not simplification, but some acceleration and reducing the complexity of the exascale system we are running on, because they are designed for that. And this technology is designed for neural network. Then the question is, can we take advantage of that? And this is some work I try to initiate with some students and exploring. This is very exploratory. Please don't take any conclusion of that. This is very exploratory. Another domain also is quantum computing. Question, can we do seismic with quantum computing? We know that there are some algorithms which are able to solve AX equal B, the famous Lloyd algorithm. It exists. It has not yet been implemented on quantum computer. It's certainly many issues, but it exists. So can we implement this kind of algorithm into a qubit machine? Can we take advantage of that for solving PDEs, for doing some data fitting, machine learning, but mainly solving PDEs? If we can, because of this capability, we know that we will accelerate by on order of polynomial order the speed of computation. Then this is something we have to address. But also, we can also come back closer to the Schrödinger equation. It's very easy to modify this wave equation, scalar wave equation you can see here, by introducing complex variable and to build an Hamiltonian. And then I come back to a complex first order equation with my operator is a pure Hamiltonian. And then the problem is n-body problem. Then I can maybe solve this technology. These are some work, again, we are starting to explore, and you can see that this work will be, cannot be done without coming back to revisit our mathematics, our formulation, coming back to work with academics and university labs who will define the mathematics behind, working with the people who are designing the computers, even if they don't think the design, or they don't anticipate the design of this computer for such application, but graphic cards were not designed for computation at the beginning. Now they are the main HPC component for modern and pre-exascale computers. Then all these ideas are interesting because we can explore all this technology, and it already exists and it's progressing very fast. And this is something maybe the community could start to explore through collaboration, or maybe it is too early, I don't know. Then to conclude, coming back to something more operational, we know that HPC pulls the heartbeat of oil and gas. With the integration of geoscience discipline is now trivial, the bridge between physical scale, better prediction. The new item we have to learn to introduce is machine learning. The problem is we see a very huge increase of complexity in our system. And the question is, okay, this increase in complexity is maybe due to some very well-known, maybe end of Moore laws, and we cannot do something else. Maybe people will find new component, but at some time we will end up to some dead end. Is it a good time to start to explore new technology for doing something else? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henri. We have time for a couple of questions.
I have one simple question. There are all these different length scales in geology, and you start to explore finer and finer length scales. At some point, you come to a limit, which is this kind of smallest amount of oil that's profitable to drill for.
Yeah, indeed.
So how far away is that length scale?
No, in fact, it is almost there, because with all the analysis we are performing, we very soon we know if a trap is economically possible or not. No, but what is important is coming back to the thinner and thinner is a multiscale. From pore, almost at the nanoscale, up to reservoir scale, we don't know how to do that today. And we need to introduce and to couple more physics, and we need to couple more technology and a huge amount of computing power. And then this is where exascale will certainly make the difference very soon.
How far have you gotten into exploring quantum computers?
How far is not far at all. We are just starting with a student working on this technology and the algorithms I just explained you. And we have initiated a collaboration with Oak Ridge National Lab. And the plan is to two-phase implement machine learning, classical machine learning, we know, and how to transpose it to quantum computing, maybe with D-Wave computers. And second point is exploring this more numerical implementation for two reasons. How we have to reformulate our problem? Is it possible? Can we implement existing computing algorithms such as Lloyd algorithms? There are many questions about that. Some people told me that it's not possible today. We'll see. Can we revisit our mathematical formulation? And also, can we help the compiler people to develop the corresponding tools and compilers for programming this? And for us, by starting at this level, very low level, it's a very good way to understand this, because I can tell you that even now I don't understand much in this technology. I'm far away from understanding it. It's very complex. But a year ago, when I started reading paper on that, I was not able to understand anything. And maybe not our generation will not understand that. But we have to think next generation. And I really think that we should start to train and to educate young generation with this technology.
I think we'll thank Henri one more time. Thank you.